Welcome back, everyone. It is your buddy Orange Hat here with Novus Renaissance. How are you?
Ave, greetings, everyone, from Dorpidorvers.
Alrighty, and we are here for the weekly recap number 12. And we are going to be covering some topics, an update in the Alec Baldwin shooting news that I have been covering ever since it happened. All the way back in 2021 when Alec Baldwin ended a person's life and has denied any wrongdoing since. So that will be the first topic. But before we get started, let's say hello to the chat. We got Vanya in the chat. We got Novus in the chat. And we got Detective Pierce in the chat. Also, folks, if you want to subscribe to my channel, support my channel in any way, subscribing, leaving likes, watching streams, sharing the content, and the channel link every now and then helps get the channel noticed. I finally got the 1,500. Still hoping to get higher. Want to get to at least 2K. And then really, it's all good from there. But I also want to get to 4,000 watched hours. That is a goal of mine. So any help there is all. So welcome. So while we get into this, let's get into our first topic, which is the Alec Baldwin shooting case. Alec Baldwin allegedly texted or spent time texting and FaceTiming during firearms training for Rust Armor testifies. So, brief recap, folks. Alec Baldwin got in trouble because he was handed a gun that he didn't or that he was told was safe, didn't think to check it, and pulled the hammer back and then pulled the trigger when he did a quick draw that he wasn't really needing to do, and he ended up killing a woman. Her name was Helena Hutchins. And 2 years would pass before they would eventually think to bring charges. They tried bringing charges. They ended up dropping the charges because, well, they added a charge that was not in effect, or for a law that was not in effect until after he had committed the act itself. So they ended up dropping charges until more evidence could be found. Now that new evidence has been found, he has been recharged with involuntary manslaughter, a charge that carries 18 months total in prison. So it also, a lot of other stuff. I have a playlist that this live stream itself will be a part of. It's called the Alec Baldwin shooting playlist or shooting news playlist. So let's get into it. Rust Armor, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, testified that Alec Baldwin spent time texting and FaceTiming and having his assistant shoot video of him with the gun for Instagram during firearms testing or training, RadarOnline.com has learned. On October 21, Baldwin fired a real gun, not a prop gun, a real gun that shot and killed film director of photography Helena Hutchins. 27-year-old Gutierrez-Reed is now facing a trial in Santa Fe on February 21st, 2023 on charges of involuntary manslaughter and evidence tampering. The prosecutor argued her negligence in mistakenly loading live ammunition coupled with her alleged evidence tampering warrant these charges. She could face up to 3 years in prison for these charges and an additional 18 months for a separate firearms possession charge added later. And this is a picture of Helena. A beautiful woman she was. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yep. So Gutierrez-Reed held a training session for a dozen or so actors whose roles called for them to handle guns, but Baldwin was unable to attend. I was very impressed by the training session, Halls testified to the OSHB. She made sure all of those actors were holding the gun properly, pulling it out of their holster. They all shot blanks. The armorer claimed that she held a private training session with Alec Baldwin at the church, testifying, "I walked in. I said, 'All right, Alec, I'm going to be your armorer. We're going to go over how to shoot all your weapons, how to load them, how to make them safe. And we're going to make sure that you really know that you look like you know what you're doing.'" So, yeah, the armorer said that Baldwin spent much of the planned session on his phone texting, FaceTiming his wife and children, and having an assistant shoot the window for his or video for his social media. And this is why I would have said, or if I was any competent armorer, I would have said, sir, I request you put the phone away. We are trying to train you to be safe with a firearm. Or I would have walked off set and be like, he's not going to take this seriously. I'm not going to be responsible for somebody getting killed. You know, it's that simple. If this person is not going to do the safety required for for handling these weapons, he shouldn't be handling the weapons ever. What do you think so far?
No, I think you're 100% spot on because, we look at all the safety incidences that can arrive on any film. I mean, you have the disclaimer with the animals, no animals were hurt in the films. You see like these incredible sequences where you're like, how did somebody not get hurt? But then you have something with actual firearms and, safety is paramount. And the irony is that if basic safety procedures were taken more seriously, this probably wouldn't be happening. The other thing too that's interesting is, Alec Baldwin has taken very clear positions on his personal positions on guns and on how he views them. And if he hadn't been making a movie that would have gun violence and these firearms, then nobody would have died. If he would have actually put his film values into practice, it kind of raises the question about why he wants to do all these things with the Western. Because back in the 19th century, these type of weapons, they were powerful, black powder, they got better, and these were high caliber rounds. These weren't just like what we have today. I mean, they were like getting up to 50 caliber and stuff like that. And so back then it was even more. So it's just unfortunate.
Well, they had the damage of 50 cal. They weren't as powerful as 50 cal. But yes, when a revolver hit you, they didn't go through, or if a round from a revolver hit you, folks, some might go through you depending on how strong the revolver is, but revolvers generally have a lower muzzle velocity, which means the bullet will stick in you and tumble around in you and not just go through you. Going through you is still traumatizing, but having a bullet that will hit in you and bounce around in a little bit will do a lot more damage. And that's what revolvers are known for.
It's a bad day.
It's a real bad day. So continuing on, after the session, Gutierrez-Reed said she requested that the producers grant more training time, particularly with Alec, just because his role is so gun heavy, and I wanted to make sure he was familiar with his weapon. Gutierrez-Reed, I testified, I told him that he needed more time to practice his cross draw, and I didn't want him to have complications with it on the filming day. So this is either a ploy to, or if she actually did tell him this is very much evidence to go against Alec Baldwin. And it shows that he ignored this and whatnot. So following Gutierrez-Reed's trial, Baldwin, the star of the producer's film, will face trial on involuntary manslaughter charges. His charge was initially scheduled in August, what was postponed following a judicial reshuffle. Baldwin pleaded not guilty to the charges. First Assistant Director Dave Halls was also charged with negligent use of a deadly weapon, but agreed to a plea deal and received 6 months of unsupervised probation. Slap on the wrist, folks. So yeah, I'm sorry. If a scum like Alec Baldwin is playing on his phone and instead of listening to the armorer, I would walk off the set and I would say, I quit. I am not going to train this person if he is not going to listen, if he is not going to pay attention. This shit is serious. A person could get hurt by not paying attention. to what you need to do when handling these things. They're not toys. They're not props. They're functional weapons that can do great harm if put in the wrong hands. Alec Baldwin didn't want to pay attention and instead wanted to text and FaceTime his wife and kids instead of doing his fucking job. So, yeah. How to do, Ruben. What do you think, Novus?
Well, the other thing too that's telling with this whole situation is that he did that interview, I think, with George Stephanopoulos, where we see very little remorse and a complete abdication of any personal responsibility. Not necessarily advisable, because that's when all the legal stuff and the investigation would have happened. But to come out and basically say that, oh, I didn't pull the trigger and I don't know how the gun went off. I mean, it's physics and science at some point. I mean, mechanics. But to have that start his whole messaging, which backfired on him, I mean, it's very self-apparent. And he's seriously concerned about this. And because it continues to persist, again, safety is paramount. But because it continues to persist, he probably never thought he'd be this far. But he still continues to live his lavish champagne lifestyle. And somebody is dead. And personally, Gutierrez Reed, she probably is at the point where she's like, I'm not going to take the fall for this guy. And if 75% of what she's saying is accurate, then her role as the supervisor for training can be said that, he just wasn't taking the lesson seriously. And it's unfortunate because you have to just not care, particularly if you're dealing with this. And again, he's not necessarily for a lot of gun access. So you beg the question, why are you making films that essentially promote the usage of guns or promoting essentially some degree of gun violence, if you could choose to do anything? So again, tragedy, but Alec Baldwin is he's got to take responsibility to some degree.
Indeed. I mean, honestly, folks, I've been covering this from the get-go, so I do have some good insight on it. But it does turn out that Alec Baldwin is truly scum. They did thorough investigations and tests on that weapon, and the testimony and the tests all showed no way that gun could have fired by simply fanning the hammer pullback. So essentially, I'm going to use my hand. I'm not going to use a toy or anything because they'll get the stream pulled. But I'm going to use my hand. Say that this is the hammer. There's no way that he could hammer it back to have it hit the bullet and strike the primer. No, you actually have to pull the hammer all the way back and pull the trigger in order for it to actually cause the weapon to discharge. That is what he did. And a woman lost her life, and the director got shot in the arm and injured. Hall's got a slap on the wrist for not checking the weapon thoroughly. Hannah Gutierrez Reed didn't check what she was putting in that gun thoroughly. And honestly, if you are a person who has worked with guns, has used guns, has done anything with guns, the first thing you ever do when handling a gun or is being handed a gun, one, you always treat it like it is loaded, as if it is loaded. Two, you make sure it's safe. If I am going on a movie set, I want to learn how to tell the difference between a loaded round, which is a real round, a prop round, a dummy round, which is a fake round, and a blank round. Live, dummy, and blank. 3 differences. I would learn those. I would learn how to properly and visually identify them. And then I would ask, when being handed the weapon, to show me each and every round being put in that weapon so that I could guarantee the safety of everyone around. And I would have the weapons handler, the armorer, the safety inspector, I would have them all around to frickin' make sure that that these were all safe. And if that meant putting a little bit more time or stopping the production just a little bit longer, so be it. You're making sure everything's safe. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and the funny thing is everything you just described is procedurally. Obviously, we don't know the exact, you know,
Procedure, yeah.
procedures that they had, but generally, everything you just said is what should be done. You treat every
That's
weapon as it
yeah.
was loaded, and you always make sure the weapon's on safe. But you separate the ammunition, and the fact that live rounds ended up being put into a prop, which is a fully
It's not a
functioning
prop.
prop. Yeah, yeah, fully functioning weapon.
If it's fully
It's
functioning, it's not a prop. Props
and
don't function.
that's a whole, and that's another
Yeah.
issue in of itself. But the fact that all these procedures that generally you just described, none of this would happen. So there is a general level of ignorance and really people not caring for this thing to
Mhm.
go off. No pun intended.
Yeah. Baldwin is clueless about particular aspects of life, despite being an actor who has ridiculous takes on subjects and he has no knowledge about. Yeah. I mean, he is an anti-gun nut. He's an anti-gun nut. And he's making movies with guns. Yeah, because guns go off by waving the magic wand, abracadabra. Yeah, or abracadabra.
I'm sure there's a Harry Potter spell for it.
Yep. P.S. Just being sarcastic, just getting tired of people defending Alec Baldwin with his crap, believing him. Yeah, I don't believe him at all. And yeah, and then people make the stupid straw man argument. It's not an actor's job. By the way, a monkey came out of my butt today. Yeah. Did you know a monkey came out of my yeah. Greetings, RTO and Junebug. Great to see. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, SAG after I covered this a while back. SAG after it defended Alec Baldwin. It's not his job to know the difference, to check the weapon. I'm sorry, but if you are going to handle a weapon, you need to know every single in and out. You need to basically take a hunter safety course that a child could pass. I was 13 years old when I did my first hunter safety course. I could have done it when I was younger and passed it with flying colors, where we had to learn the ins and outs of shotguns, handguns, and rifles, and other rifles. And I learned about 22s, 12 and 20 gauge shotguns. I learned about handguns, revolvers, and automatics. And guess what? I was able to be handed those things, check them, fire them, and make sure everything was safe. I did it by the book when I was a kid. I still do it by the book. Even if somebody like my brother was to hand me a weapon, one of his firearms, I wouldn't take his word at it. I would check it. I would check to see if the weapon is loaded. I would check to see if the bullets were as they are. It's like, is this gun wet or loaded? Or if he was to say yes, and I would check just to make sure as well. As redundant as it may be, that's just me, man. I prefer safety. My parents even made me check squirt guns to make sure that, or they and guests, what I think of them for them. Yeah.
Well, and the irony is there is a certain national, shall we say, weapon slash rifle organization that,
Yep.
ironically enough, had they been invited, and there's about a half dozen now that you could choose from, but it had a certain organization that Mr. Baldwin has probably a very specific bent against. Had they been invited on and ran the whole situation, this would never have happened, and they would
Oh,
have
damn
had
straight.
some of the best training for gun safety in the world, and general education. But that's the irony is, had he picked his, shall we say, adversary on certain issues, then he would have been fine. But how the rounds got in the chamber, this is a Sherlock Holmes spin-off right here. Could be its own HBO series.
Oh yeah, definitely. So moving on to our next topic, Madam Web has come out over the week or during the week, folks, and So it's been out since Wednesday night. And spoilers are ahead. If you have not seen Madam Web, tune out and watch the movie first, because this this topic is going to contain heavy spoilers. Madam Web star defends Marvel film Spider-Woman bait and switch. This is supposed to be an origin story. Now, this is from Bounding into Comics. Shout out to Spencer Backley. According to star Isabella Merced, the fact that Madam Web bait and switched audiences with the promised appearances of 3 costume Spider-Women was not an error, but an intentional creative decision meant to reinforce the idea that the film is an origin story. As seen across all the film's marketing materials, including its one and only trailer, much of the marketing's focused for the ill-conceived entry of Sony's Spider-Man Without a Spider-Man universe centered on the costume appearances of its 3 deuterogenists, Anya Corazon, Isabella Merced, Julia Cornwall, Sydney Sweeney, and Maddie Franklin, Celeste O'Connor, otherwise known in the comics as Araña, Spider-Girl 2, Spider-Woman 3, and Spider-Woman 2. So this is Maddie Franklin in her outfit. However, despite this heavy focus, or this focus heavily suggesting that the 3 heroines would spend at least some time, if not a decent amount of their respective screen times, in suit, the film's premiere would reveal that this portrayal of its contents was nothing more than a blatant deception. So this is what they call the bait and switch. They bait you into the theater thinking you're going to see these women in these suits on screen for a good amount of time. Then it turns out the reality isn't so much the same. In the film, Ezekiel, this guy here, I'm guessing, Ezekiel Sims, is this universe's version of Kane in Madam Web. Okay. So in this film, Ezekiel dictates himself to his mission of killing 3 Spider-Women after learning, courtesy of a grand vision granted to him by his own precognitive powers, that the trio were destined to not only foil his villainous plans, but also to have his eventual death. So, however, as is confirmed by the time the credits roll, the only moments in the entirety of Madam Web was the girls actually appear in costume and using their powers are Ezekiel's brief vision and a short teaser montage at the film's conclusion, which both combined occupy less than a full minute of its runtime. So less than a full minute in the trailers that they were showing all these women in the outfits and the pictures and whatnot. The reality is they're not in their suits for more than for not even a minute. What do you think of that? I mean, that's kind of nuts.
I think the studio is clearly anti-women, and they are clearly objectifying the female body, and they're giving no credit to the wonderful, stunning, brave, intelligent women actors of what they could have. I mean, we do have Miss Dakota saying on the show that she won how you don't need to know anything to see this film. And it's kind of tongue-in-cheek when you go back and watch the clip, because, like, do you actually not to have anything in your brain to watch it? Or do you just not know anything about Spider-Man? But I mean, this is a joke. You know, web all over the face. I mean, yeah, that's for right now. That's it.
So, throughout the rest of the movie, the trio are portrayed as nothing but regular teenagers. Their first and likely only, given the time or film's reception, adventure coming to a close without even one of the girls having received the respective abilities in the present day. So there's Julia Cornwall as Sydney Sweeney, traps Ezekiel in her web in Madam Web. So, yet, despite the objective, bizarre bait-and-switch nature of the creative decision, the aforementioned Merced thinks it's one of the ultimate one that ultimately benefited Madame Web's existence as an origin story. Speaking to the Rap's Andy Ortiz on February 15th, Merced argued, when you're invested in the story enough, or when you're invested enough in the story, my apologies, it's like those things don't really matter. You're just kind of like, what's best for your story? And I think they did that, or did it, for a reason, you know? This is supposed to be an origin story. It wouldn't be an origin story if we saw us in like half the movie with our suits on. She added, like it's, or like that it's, I hate how these people speak. Like that it's a little tease, and I like that it leaves people wanting more.
There's a lot of likes in that sentence. Like, a lot.
Yeah. And that's ridiculous.
That's a lot.
It's like, learn to fucking speak, woman. Learn to fucking code. And at this point, one would like to say that this movie is as surprising as it is jaw-droppingly terrible. But given that the film came from the same studio that gave the world Morbius, and earnestly tried to make everything from a Silver Sable movie to a Black Cat movie to Aunt May movie, not out of creative desire, but simply to keep the film licenses and milk the audience's money, is ultimately anything but. For the morbidly curious, or for those looking for a good laugh, Madame Web is now playing in theaters. So, yeah, this movie basically gives you the trailers, the razzle-dazzle of the women in the suits, but they don't really get any sort of screen time. In fact, it's not even a full minute. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you go to the there was a small, in the article link that you sent that you were reading at the very end, they've actually got a panel from the original one of the original comics, and you can like look at that. All the characters are there, but you see Madame Web actually having powers, like some pretty significant. She just disappears. And I mean, if they had just made that the trailer alone, there's great dialogue, there's introduction, and the thing with the origin stories is like there's no origin story that people haven't read. I mean, there's some of these comic stories have decades of building up and crafting, and all you have to do is just literally go panel by panel. But let's go ahead and just talk some numbers really quick. You know, their Screen Rant was saying that this film had a budget of about 100 million, and they need 200 million. Well, let's add inflation for another 100 million, and then maybe another 50 to 75 million for all those hidden costs that we're never going to see. So they're going to make like $350 million, maybe 400, to make something of a profit. And I think the merchandise is gone. So it's like right now, I think it's off to 6 to 8 million. And it's just sad because what you have now is, I think about 5 years ago, you had like a coordinated sort of Soviet style planning to really like change films and degrade them to what they were, you know, to woke, wicked, obstinate, killjoy extremists, you know, solidify them. And now I think we're entering into an era of actual incompetence, actual idiocracy. I don't think people know how to write. And you probably have like half groupthink, half AI, with a dash of maybe we should go back and check a comic. But I think it's pretty sad because if the ending of the article is like, if you want a good laugh, and some of the people that do all the negative promotion with all the umpteenth, you know, this is a terrible film, or I watch it so you don't have to. It's like, if all a film is to make you laugh, one, it's not only disrespecting the characters and the legacy, but if you're an actor and actress and you can't make a competent film, when you clearly, I mean, they had free reign to make this. I mean, it's pretty bad. And it shows a lack of craft, a lack of style, and a lack of story. And it's just unfortunate that this is the full extent of modernity and the slow, decrepit dying of a once glorious golden film industry. But say la vie.
So yeah, nobody's surprised that it flopped because Dakota Johnson did not inherit the acting talent of her grandmother and her mother, aka she sucks. I don't necessarily agree with that, Junebug. Dakota Johnson, and yes, I have admitted this and done the reviews for them before, she actually did a pretty good job in 50 Shades. I thought she did a good job. I've read the books. I've seen the movies, the unrated as well as the theatricals. She actually is a decent actress. I don't think that, or I can't remember who her mother and grandmother are. But honestly, I think that she has a chance to be a good actress in a movie if it is done right. Unfortunately, she didn't get that luxury.
On that
Hey,
comment,
Sydney Sweeney is beautiful. Yeah.
on that comment, we have something a bit controversial right now to say, paired to those about Hayden Christensen.
What about Hayden Christensen?
So we would actually make a proposal that he's not that bad, or would not have been that bad in the second and third Star Wars film, based upon what he's done in the past, and particularly when you see Revenge of the Sith, based because it was probably more of George Lucas and the blue and the green screens. I mean, yeah, he's over the top in the second film. He has a lot more maturity in the character of Anakin come the third film. But I mean, to your point, it's like she isn't like that bad, as an actress, and that's unfortunate. Like across the board, some of these actors and actresses, they're not bad. They just get into these bad films. But if you're a new actor or actress and you come into a show like Disney Willow, it's like you just sabotage yourself. So, but yeah, I mean, we would say, Hayden Christensen. I mean, he could have done. You have a different director. He could probably get an excellent Anakin because he's in some other films that are pretty good. But then he got the raspberry, but they have to make these choices. They have to choose to make these films, and I would say, hey, you're making millions, so deal with it.
Yeah. So, final thoughts on this. I have no interest in seeing Madam Web. I mean, honestly, I can't even say unless. Honestly, so apparently her not Kathy Griffith, but where was it?
Yeah, Melody Griffith.
Melanie Griffith. Yeah.
Kathy Griffith. That's good.
Melody Griffith and Tippi Hedren are this woman's matriarchal line. Holy shit. Well,
we probably would go and pick a classic Madam Web graphic novel, or put together book at a local comic store and support it and buy a paper copy, because you're going to spend that much money to go actually watch a bad movie. So might as well get something that you can keep, because you're not going to see it, nor the popcorn.
Yeah. And I agree, Riot Kitty, and good to see you, by the way. Like Dakota Johnson is with most actors in Hollywood, she needs the right material to actually act well. Yes. Unfortunately, Madam Web just seems like a movie that would be better suited for a non-superhero flick. Psychological horror would have been a better genre. Yeah, probably. Freaking 1996. We're talking about thing that I haven't even gotten to yet. So yeah. All right, moving on to the next one though, which is the Tomb Raider censorship.
Surprise there.
Yep. So let's get on to this. Despite the promise that the game would appear in their original form, Tomb Raiders 1 through 3 remastered censors risque graphic found on Pierre's jacket. So once I get to that part in the article, folks, I am going to have to really whip by it, because it is shown, and I do not want to display nudity on my channel too much, So in the latest example of don't trust anything a video game developer promises you until you see it with your own eyes, despite the game's eye-rolling disclaimer informing players that the collected titles would be presented in their original unaltered form, and that it has been found that Tomb Raider 1 through 3 remastered has censored a risque illustration found in the series' first entry. So, as previously reported, upon booting up the newly released collection for the first time, players are greeted by a one-time content disclaimer informing them that though the original Tomb Raider games featured imagery that the developers, Crystal Dynamics, felt were offensive, they had ultimately chosen to present them without alterations. The game in this collections contain offensive depictions of people and cultures rooted in racial and ethnic prejudices, wrote the Marvel's Avengers developers. These stereotypes are deeply harmful, inexcusable, and do not align with our values here at Crystal Dynamics. So, showing the female form is offensive? How? Are you such a hardcore Christian that if a woman simply shows her body, you must do 1,000 Hail Marys, cross yourself, and hope you don't feel the urge to masturbate? I mean, what exactly is wrong with the female body?
Well, it's also interesting that everybody today is being so self-righteous. I mean, even over the top of what you'd have with a religion. And so the question is like, okay, you have now admitted this to the world. Are you going to
You're getting there,
give,
right?
oh yeah, all the money back that you made back to it? Just as an example, but probably not.
Yeah. So the game, or hold on, that we may, or rather than removing this content, we have chosen to present it here in its original form, unaltered, in hopes that we may acknowledge its harmful impact and learn from it. So, or at least that's what they claimed. In reality, okay, so that I believe is the picture. In reality, much to the dismay of the many who had taken the disclaimer at its word, while the specific racial and ethnic depictions were left untouched, the same could not be said for the distinctive graphic emblazoned on the series' antagonist, Pierre Dupont's bomber jacket in the very first Tomb Raider, appearing more as an Easter egg than anything else due to the fact that it's only viewing during those rare moments during his boss fights where the player is able to get behind him. The graphic in question features a completely nude woman, herself depicted in a pinup style posing, sitting underneath the text Lady Luck and its abbreviation LL. Okay, so yeah.
Avert your eyes. Avert your eyes.
No need to now. Yeah, okay. So, but in the version featured in the remastered collection, Lady Luck instead seen wearing a red bikini. Further, the two red L's, which previously adorned the coat, have been replaced by the Greek symbol for Pi Tau. It's unknown whether this is a reference to the binary star Pi Tauri or Pierre Dupont's college fraternity, itself also colored red. So, in the interest of fairness, it is possible that the disclaimers promised that Tomb Raider 1 through 3 remastered would be presented uncensored, only applied to the racial and ethnic stereotypes is specifically measured, and not the admittedly too hot for general audiences jacket sported by Pierre. However, even if this was developers' intention, the fact that they did not specifically clarify this detail to potential customers is nothing short of dishonest and sets a worrying new precedent in an industry that is already crumbling under its own weight and its continued hubris. So we are skipping over that. As of writing, neither Crystal Dynamics nor co-developer Espear Media have offered any public comment of the deceptive change of Laura Croft's debut adventure. Meanwhile, should players wish to check out the remasters for themselves, Tomb Raider 1 through 3 is now available, or remastered is now available for purchase on the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Windows, Xbox One, Xbox Series XS platforms. So, yeah, honestly, to me, if you are going to say we are changing nothing except the graphics, even if there's nudity in there, keep it. That way you are holding true to your word. Now, if you were to say we are not going to show the nudity in the game because this is a game for kids originally, understood. Wouldn't have had a problem. Me personally, I don't give a shit because I don't play games anymore. But they did lie. They said they were not going to change a thing about the game other than the updated graphics. And yet they decided to change the jacket simply because it showed a woman in her female form or unrestrained female form. So yeah, what are your thoughts, Novus?
It's interesting how now there's two jacket controversies, one with the Top Gun Maverick and then with the Tomb Raider. And I don't know what is more concerning, this or at the article it said that Phoebe Waller-Bridge confirmed she's working on a Tomb Raider series and reveals her plan. So it's like, I don't know. But I mean, to your point, and this goes back into a bit of Madame Web. It's the bait and switch. It's, hey, we're going to do something awesome. We're going to revive this. And then next thing you know, it's like, yeah, but we decided to do this. Because ultimately people don't care. I mean, even if they were going to say we're going to completely make it for modern artists, we're going to do a gender swap, we're going to do a race swap, etc. Nobody would have cared. But you're going to lose. I mean, this is what I think people are understanding. You have a core group of fans that buy the merch, buy multiple tickets to movies, etc., etc. You're not going to get those people back. So what you have is these fringe groups that talk a lot, but they don't put the money. They don't put butts in seats for the theaters. And they don't buy stuff. So at the end of the day, you have the entire brand collapsing.
Yep.
I mean, and I don't feel sorry for these people. This is a novelty industry. You do not need this to survive. And in some cases, if some of these things were not out there, people would probably be able to read more. Maybe speak in sentences without saying like 20 times. But
exactly.
Hey, we'll always have Paris.
Yeah. Right. Kitty makes good point here. I'd like people to start suing video game companies for false advertising, like how it was started for movies. You're right. Because technically this is false advertising. I do believe there is a good argument to make that this does fall under the false advertising laws, because they say that they're not changing anything about the game, except that they actually do change the game by the video graphics of Pierre Dupont's jacket. So
I mean, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you have made millions of dollars on these games, these franchises. You know, if you're going to say it's such a big deal as of right now, then you should darn well give a percentage of that profit back. And it's like, we're going to give $20 million based upon whatever. I mean, all this novelty speech is just basically down the drain. It's garbage because it doesn't mean anything. I mean, you apologizing for something 30 years ago is absolutely worthless without deeds and action. So, I mean, stand up and actually practice what you preach, going back to Alec Baldwin, going back to everything. So give us some money, pay, do something charitable. But none of this talk, otherwise it's pointless.
Yeah. Now, getting on to our final topic of the X-Men 97. It would seem that X-Men 97 pushes modern day delusions with Morph, is what I have in the scroll on the bottom here, folks. So, hold on one moment. Hey, Darth Zathra, good to see you. So, yeah, folks, the trailer for X-Men 97, which is supposedly a direct canon continuity of the original X-Men cartoon series back in the 90s, has come out, and the marketing suggests that the polymorph character of Morph is non-binary. The delusional mental state in which a person believes that they are neither male nor female and does not feel like such, and instead of seeking medical or psychological help for this delusion, they instead feel that it should be embraced. So, let's get into this. This is from another one from Bounding in the Comics. X-Men 97 showrunner confirms Disney Plus series will portray Morph as non-binary. Now, non-binaryism didn't come out until the 2010s. And it is a fad. It is a mental delusion, folks. It does not at all go along with the realities of science and nature. Only humans, the delusional ones, believe in non-binaryism, when all of reality on Earth goes by the binary male and female of science. There is no animal out in our planet that thinks it is neither male nor female. Now you have the hermaphroditic trait that resides through nature, where there are some animals that can spontaneously change sex between male and female. Humans are not one of those. There are only two genders. However, it is between male and female. They cannot be both at the same time, or there is dominance in either form. If you have a human hermaphrodite, chances are they will be visually and outwardly expressed in either a more male dominant or female dominant looks. However, you could still have both forms of genitalia. So there's your there's your science lesson. So let's get into this article. In the first confirmed change being made to the fan favorite incarnation of Marvel's Merry Band of Mutants, X-Men 97 showrunner Bo DeMaio has revealed that unlike the original series, the upcoming revival will portray the mutant shapeshifter Morph as non-binary individual. The change was first confirmed by DeMaio during a series-centric interview given to Empire magazine for the April 2024 issue, providing brief teases into the approach of the series and writing each of the series' principal mutant castmates. When it came to Morph, the showrunner confirmed to the Empire, as recapped by the outlet's Helena O'Hara, that this is a lighter take on the character, who is non-binary and has an interesting budding relationship with Wolverine. Swear to God, if you make Wolverine gay or bisexual or any of that horse shit, he was never any of that. He was very well grounded in his masculinity and his
he's
identity.
Canadian.
Yeah.
A rare gem.
Unsurprisingly, this presents a significant change to the character of Morph, both as originally portrayed in the original Marvel Comics and the original X-Men the Animated Series. Born Kevin Sidney, the mutant known as Morph, as his name implies, possesses the mutant gift of cellular level shapeshifting, metamorph, as opposed to endomorph or ectomorph, which are human body types, and mesomorphs. Though depicted as a through and through villain in the comic book, on the small screen, Morph was initially introduced as a proper member of the X-Men in the team's pilot episode, Night of the Sentinels, before being killed in that same episode by a surprise attack carried out by the group of Sentinels. But in typical comic book fashion, Morph's death proves to be anything but, as the mutant is later revealed to not only have been rescued from the attack by none other than Mr. Sinister, but also had an evil personality planted in him by the villain. I do remember those episodes, folks. Following a brief stint as a mind control pawn of the leather-clad Englishman, Morph is eventually rescued by his former teammates and brought back into the X-fold, even going on to play a major role in the eventual destruction of the Sentinel-producing Master Mold. And of course, throughout his adventures, both in print and animated, Morph has never been portrayed as considering himself non-binary. Not once. Ever. Because it's a mental delusion. While his ability allows him to shift into any form, including that of a woman, at the biological level, he always defaulted to his standard appearance as a relative nondescript human male. Alas, this ham-fisted change is certainly disappointing. It cannot be said as it is wholly unexpected. After all, as stated by DeMaio during a 2023 Marvel livestream regarding the series, one of his goals with X-Men 97 was to just get this right and really drill down to what I think the X-Men's always going to be about, which is just, we talk a lot about the dream is social acceptance and social justice. Yeah, except that it doesn't deal with giving into delusional behavior. And it also had, or the X-Men show also had to deal with self-acceptance, meaning that these characters had to accept what they were and not, or learn to not care about what others thought of them.
It's an excellent point. Absolutely
Yeah.
excellent point.
So I think that can sometimes make certain people feel alienated. And for me, it's always going to come down to, I think, the X-Men, and what we're going to be trying to do with the series is talking about the power of empathy and how it can kind of heal these wounds that turn people against each other. That things like racism and bigotry don't just exist. There's a reason behind it. That empathy can kind of help us connect and build those bridges where we can actually say, hey, we are all different, but we can have these things that still can connect us, or can still connect us. Ultimately, how much of the spotlight Marvel will put on Morph's newfound gender identity remains to be seen until X-Men 97 slashes its way into Disney Plus on March 20th. So that is the end of the article. But yeah, folks, if you ask me, I do not believe that it is necessary to push this sort of delusion because it's harmful to children. And honestly, I will be blunt, as I am always known to be. Anybody who does believe in non-binaryism and helps perpetuate it, I do not believe they should be allowed to have kids or to be in custody of children, because they are giving into a delusion that can potentially harm a child's natural development, and that child being able to learn the reality of the world, that there is only male and female. So let's get into the chat while Novus gives his thoughts on this.
So it's interesting too, is that, we are dealing with an entire cartoon series that's about mutants. So you have this issue of non-binariness coming up when actually within the context of the mutations of the biology, this Mr. DiMeo guy, he's actually incorrect by actually going down non-binary. If you could actually make an argument for Mystique and for Morph that they would be pollinary, because they could be able to actually change different genetical structures across multiple folds of alien biology, which could then but then you still get down to that you have no tryness of this fusion aspect of between like a combination of biology. But I mean, even just to kind of keep things original within the science of the show, it's like you're actually going the opposite way, which shows a degree of creative stupidity. And the second thing is the show is fun. And the other thing about the show is when you have today in the social scape, you have people calling for people to be canceled on a whim. Well, that's literally what the entire mutant universe was fighting against. Ultimately, it was being canceled by powerful organizations that mobilized mass support and galvanized the power of the state to create instruments of destruction to literally go and cancel. And there were some great shots in the comics. And then I think there was an episode in the show with Wolverine and Jubilee where you have this wall of basically wanted posters that has an X on the face of each mutant. And then you had basically like another line that was basically apprehended or wanted. And it was when like Cable, and it was a complex show if you're trying to watch it back in the day, because it would jump around a lot. But I mean, you got the whole reality that there was an oppressive force that says you don't have what we think is important. Therefore, because you're different of opinion, of, in this case, biology, we see you as an existential threat. So the irony of the X-Men is that it goes to the heart of part of the problem as of right now with society, and people identified, as you said, they identified with the show. Because in addition to great story and great characters, I mean, these are some of the iconic titans. You have people that couldn't accept themselves, and you have to like yourself. That's one of the core things of being human is learning to like yourself, because sometimes you're the only person that will like you in moments that are the darkness, and it's not to give in to despair. And the whole show was about that. So there's stupidity of philosophy with this design. There's a stupidity when it comes to the legacy. There's a stupidity of basic show science and biology that you could do something with interesting. And there's a stupidity of just common sense. And it's unfortunate because, again, the degradation of these things is at a time when we have so much ability to create. It is what it is.
Yeah. And Geek Detective Pierce actually makes a good point here. Furthermore, I found a clip of how most Marvel writers have no education or clue about these IPs. That's because Marvel got caught admitting this. When they are hiring people, they are going to make, or if you are trying to get a job with them and you know so much about this stuff, they won't hire you. They want you to be a retard. And I do mean held back and hindered and ignorant. It's definitive standard of the word use of the word, folks. Retard is not an offensive derogatory term. I use it in the original definition of held back and hindered through ignorance. So yes, when I say that they want you retarded in order to hire you to be with or to create for Marvel and Disney, they want you retarded to Marvel, held back and hindered to Marvel. They don't want you knowing about the canon. They don't want you knowing about any of the source material. So,
and how are you supposed to run a successful business on this model? I mean, it just begs the question. And we'll make one observation with this. You know, if you go back up and you look at Storm's picture in this article, it is completely just totally disrespectful to the character. I mean, Storm is a powerful mutant. She is a epitome of femininity, and she's got this great style both in her costume and outside of her costume. And they give her a butch haircut. They give her no form, and it looks like she's got a bad gym day out of high school. In fact, the whole collection of these Marvel's Mutants Return to 2D, it's like, you guys suck. You can't even do basic 2D animation. You know, it's like, come on. But oh well. We have the originals. Yeah, you pull that up. It's like, what are you guys doing? I mean, it takes more effort to do this than just say, you know what, we're gonna 4K the original and we're just gonna release it. It'd take a heck of a lot less money to do that. But and Beast is too dark blue, and you know, everything like that. It's unfortunate. I mean, good lord.
Now, honestly, her having a sort of mohawk, or in this case, I call that the Super Saiyan haircut. Her having that haircut is nothing new because she's had it in the comics. She's also had it in the original 97 cartoon. I do believe in the future episodes where Cable was going back in time. He actually looked at Storm, who was married to Wolverine at the time. So her having this haircut, I believe in this specific sense, is out of place, where in the future it would have been more in place. Because
yeah, I concur.
Yeah. Who's number 7, number 8? Who's number 8? Bishop. Okay. Bishop was not a person who made his way into the... He was not an X-Men. In fact, he was a Crusader that went through time to stop certain events.
Yep.
So, also, where's his long hair? If this is a continuation of if this is a continuation of that show, I would think that he would have his longer hair, you know?
And his lats are way smaller in this one than they were in the other one. And the man was a powerhouse. So
no, okay,
yeah,
so
and he like one of the episodes, he jumps back in time to warn the X-Men of saying, I'm from the future. Most of you all are dead. Most of you are not alive. And the whole world has changed. And that became like a huge, like, you know, series, you know, at that point, you know, whenever it was going. And it the show was confusing. If you're watching it as a kid, it's confusing, but it's exciting. But it's like if you miss one episode and you come back 2 weeks later, you're like, I have
What
no
the
idea
hell is
where we're
going
at.
on? Yeah.
Like, what happened? Everything was cool, and then everything's not cool, and I have no
Yeah.
idea where to go. So,
And I actually accidentally missed a couple of episodes during that time because it's like, holy shit, why did Xavier, or how is Xavier still alive in the future if he just died in front of Bishop?
yeah,
It's like, oh my God, man. I mean,
well,
I do plan on going and revisiting the original 97 show, but I will find other ways to do it instead of going through Disney Plus.
oh, that platform is days are numbered. But just a quick point on Morph, like that story of Morph, because we remember watching some of the episodes. It was actually like very like it was an intense show because throughout the show he's fighting he's fighting his inner battle with what's been imposed by Mr. Sinister and his desire not to betray his friends. It's tearing him up as he's wrestling between the evil the forced evil personality on him being mind control and then his desire to do it. And when he finally breaks free, it's a powerful moment only to then have a twist at it and you're like, gosh, man, the good guys don't really win a lot in the show. It's like continuing to endure, but they don't have a lot of wins, which makes it even more endearing because it's like it's a struggle. And that was part of the whole theory behind the mutants. Being a mutant is it's not easy.
Yeah. I have no nostalgic attachments to the 90s show since I wasn't alive to watch it, but it still sucks that, or this is the X-Men's return to animation. Yeah, I mean, honestly, Riot, give it a watch. If you can, give it a watch. I think that you'll actually see that it actually has a lot of good, the wonderful thing about the 90s, like the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and the Spider-Man series is that they all actually had interconnectivity. They had crossover episodes. Spider-Man actually went to Xavier's mansion because he felt that he needed to look into whether or not he was a mutant instead of technically being an enhanced individual or mutate due to being or having powers through other means, like Deadpool.
Metahuman.
Yeah. So definitely give it a watch if you can. I'm actually going to look on my digital library to see if it's possible that X-Men, the animated series. I mean, if the animated series for X-Men is out or is available for purchase, I'll definitely purchase it because I will not want to, or yes, unfortunately, it will mean giving money to Disney. However, I do believe that it would, or it's better to have them all together permanently when I get rid of the series itself, or when I get rid of the, because I am getting rid of my Disney Plus platform. I can no longer sustain it, or my Disney Plus stream
Is
or
that a
subscription.
curiosity? Like, how much have you spent like on like the actual platform rental, and then have you bought any quote media that ultimately you lose? Like, what are you gonna like end up losing? I mean, if you don't mind, we're just curious because you don't get to keep anything if you leave the digital reservation. If it was,
Leaving Disney Plus, or right now I pay for the Hulu or the triple bundle of Hulu, Disney Plus, and I believe ESPN, which I don't even use. But it's the no ads because I can't stand ads.
okay,
But
gotcha.
I do believe that let's see here. Marvel Comics X-Men. But I do believe that, or once you leave, you have no more access to Disney Plus or
Yep,
any of
same
the
with like
content.
Amazon Prime and Netflix and all that stuff. No matter what you
However,
bought.
having a digital library like Voodoo, which is now going to be repurposed in Fandango, but my stuff will still carry over. I own that stuff. I bought that stuff. The only thing I do not agree with is when new versions of the stuff comes out, they change it, like what they
Ah,
did with Star Wars, A New Hope, and Return of the Jedi. where they actually Disney or the digital versions were updated. I don't
They
like
swap
that.
it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I want the version that I bought, not the version that is updated. You know?
I think that's been one of the biggest surprise over the last 10 years is people having a click that, oh, I bought this on Amazon or I bought this on a platform and I don't actually own it. I essentially have access to it, provided I stay in perpetuity with the platform and pay the increases or whatever rates they have. So that's cool
Mhm.
that you at least get to keep your digital property, but
Yeah.
they can always change it.
Yep. I mean, on my library, I'll actually show people my library here because I'm not afraid to after it's done loading. I mean, 14.99 for the 1992 first season of X-Men. No, not going to buy that. They don't, unfortunately, they don't have the bundle. If they had the bundle, I could grab the bundle, but I would wait for it to go on sale. But to essentially go to my library and then because folks, I do, or yes, I do advocate for digital media, or not digital media, but I do advocate for physical media. It's always important to have physical media. That way they can't shape it or they can't reshape it. However, having digital can also help you on the go. It can, or if you don't have one of those laptops that you could just pop a DVD in, or one of those carry with you DVD or Blu-ray players, it's good to have the digital access with you, you know? So let
And
me
you can watch it offline too.
sometimes yes, you can watch it offline. Um that's one of the things about oops, wrong one. That's one of the things I like about Movies Anywhere. Yes, it is owned by Disney. However, it is strictly just a digital place to store your movies. Um I mean, this is my library on Vudu. I have 611 movies plus or I just recently got Glass and Split because I already own Unbreakable. I also got a couple of or a few John Wayne movies. Equalizer 3 is a good movie. And these are my TV ones: Batman, the complete animated series, the complete animated series for Superman. The Mentalist is such a great film. Smallville, Highlander. My wish list, I have a bunch of film or stuff I want to get. Unfortunately, not everything is on sale right now. Angel has fallen, or actually, let's view this because this actually shows some things are on sale, like Olympus has fallen and Angel has fallen. If London has fallen was on sale, I'd snag all, or I'd snap up all three. I would grab all three. Um, I also want to grab the Hatfield and McCoys because I thought that was actually a very good show.
Army of
Oh,
Darkness.
oh yeah.
Oh
Now,
man.
yes, you
Yeah.
will see Halloween 2 here. It's because I do own the other or Rob Zombie version or the other Rob Zombie movie, and I am a completionist. So,
Mm.
yes, there are some movies that not everybody will or like and whatnot. I definitely want to grab Person of Interest when it comes on sale next. Hopefully, it's on sale for a good price. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. I'm gonna or I want to snap up those two. Scorpion was also a good series. I mean, these are all series that I truly enjoyed. I mean, there's really or having access to them when I don't have access to my physical media because I just have boxes of DVDs and Blu-rays that I don't have the ability to play with or to put them into a digital or a physical player and play. I don't have that luxury right now. So, yeah, I
That
do
Justice
have access to digital media.
the Justice League Unlimited, I think, is a excellent sheer. They did a second season, but like they had some excellent episodes throughout that series,
Mhm.
particularly with the development of the secondary line of characters. Like we got to see the other members of the Justice League. But they had a great theme song, and the episodes were good 3 arcs, unless they had an expanded series. And of course, there was I think one of our favorites was when Cersei, I think, turns Wonder Woman into an animal, and she basically has Batman say, "You have to do the unthinkable," and she makes him perform in a nightclub to sing "Am I Blue?" It's like that's awesome. It
Yeah.
just has like all that stuff, and then Diana's finally back at the end of it, and then she's like, "So you're gonna stop this?" She's like, "Are you kidding? Not on your life. I want to hear the rest of the song."
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, folks, honestly, I cannot stand Disney. Now, sure, I will fully admit right now, folks, I don't, or I do not like Disney. I will boycott them as much as I can, but I am not blind to the fact that life includes the ability to compromise. And sometimes you have to do shit that sucks. You can't go through a full boycott of Hollywood no matter how much you want to, especially if you are trying to procure things that you liked in the past. Things like from Buena Vista Productions and whatnot. That's owned by
Yeah,
Disney. So if I was to buy The Rock, I own The Rock now, but when I bought The Rock on here, money went to Disney. A little bit of that money went to Disney. It's the
that
same as when you go to the theaters. Or if you got a ticket on the first or a release night, or if you have a $10 ticket for a Disney movie, Disney's getting $9 out of that 10. The theater only gets a buck of your money. So that's why concessions stay as high as they are. It is important to know all these things so that if you are going to stop giving them money, stop giving them money in the right areas and only do little purchases here and there. Not or make sure that when you get something like on social or on digital media, it's on sale. So you are paying the absolute lowest that you can in order to procure it so that they don't get the full amount of money. That is how I always get stuff off of my wish list when I am on my wish list on Vudu. And also that's how I do a lot of the content on here. I don't or I watch the stuff here and there. When me and Mara are discussing things like Underworld last week, I was able to watch the unrated version with the re-edited footage from like Rise of the Lycans, in which I can't really do that with or she was unable to do that by getting it through Amazon, where I got it from Vudu and was able to get it the same way through Movies Anywhere. But yes, when they're going through those sequences, it's pretty interesting to have different versions of the films as well. As you saw in my Voodoo wish list, you probably saw that I had Boondock Saints, the director's cut. I have the theatrical, but I also want to get the director's cut because the director's cut gives more context to the story. Having multiple versions of the same film is actually another cool thing to have because that way you can look at the differences between the films. So, with that being said, thank you. Um, I'm starting to see too many parallels with She-Ra, Princess of Power, and X-Men '97. Place your bets in the animation, which will actually be worse than the '90s original. Oh, definitely. Um, Secondhand shops depends on which ones I can get. Yeah, definitely go with secondhand shops if you're when you're buying the physical media because then they don't get, or it's the shop owners themselves that get the money. And Scorpion is good, but not as cool as Black Scorpion. Never heard of that show, so I wouldn't know. But anyway, folks, I am going to end it here. We have been talking for over an hour. Novus, thank you so much for showing up. Is there
absolutely.
anything? Is there anything you'd like to plug before we get going?
I'll just do two closing comments with Disney. You know, it's a lesson learned because you can see this rise of a great company. And this is the story of civilization, whether it's nations or companies. Disney is a company that has gotten away at 180 degrees opposite of where it started. I mean, it was a visionary construct under one man. So you have this rise and this expansion, and he had a very specific set of values that are not reflected today. So it's kind of like you got like the before Walt and after Walt, a little bit in the '90s, but then by late '90s, it's a different company, different value, and again, if you're looking, if the audience, is looking for anything, then come and check out the Door of a Doorverse. But other than that, great stream, and appreciate you having us on, and thanks for everybody in the chat dropping comments. It's good to see everybody, and appreciate y'all.
Yep. Also, folks, if you want an alternative twist to Marvel, I'm actually writing a fan fiction of Marvel, a story that takes place in a tainted Marvel universe. So if you want a link to that, it's still in progress, but I have enough chapters to keep you reading for a bit. Also, there's pictures of the characters, so if you need to know what characters you're not familiar with look like, you can see what they look like. If you want a link to that, hit me up on Twitter or email me if you want a link to it, if you don't have social media. My email is Daniel Maloney II at yahoo.com. Maloney is how you spell my last name. Daniel is obviously or I'm not afraid of people knowing my name, but that is my email that I use primarily. I can send it to you there, but also if you want it, or if you're on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook even, look me up there. I can send you the links there. Also, stay tuned for tomorrow. I have my Friday night, or my Tuesday is going to be busy. So Monday, I am doing my afternoon theme stream, in which it is Fright Night versus Fright Night. So I'm going to be watching those movies tonight in order to properly get them in my head. So other than
the
that,
epic showdown.
Yeah, which one's better? It's Friday or it's Fright Night versus Fright Night, original versus reboot. Tuesday night, I will be on the Barroom Podcast with Society Reviews, and we'll be discussing all sorts of insanity from Hollywood there. Wednesday, we'll be discussing Underworld Evolution. Thursday will be My Bloody Valentine, the remake from 2009 on my channel. The Underworld discussion will be on Mara Jade's channel, or Jade Shadow, at 8 p.m. So make sure that you all tune in for that. And also Friday nights is Orange Hat Uncensored. So yeah, you'll get my unfiltered, uncensored opinions on certain things, specifically in the realm of politics and whatnot. You basically get Orange Hat Unleashed. So yeah. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Novus, thank you for coming on. Stay tuned for next week, folks. I'll have topics as the week progresses, most likely around Saturday, when most of the news has come out. So anyway, folks, thank you to Riot Kitty, Novus Renaissance, Happy Dinah, Vanya. Let's see here. Geek Detective Pierce. Who else? Darth Zathra.
Have a great week, everybody.
Yep. Society Reviews, Junebug. Thank you to all of you who had tuned in. This has been Orange Hat and team, and y'all have a wonderful day, and always to remember to stay humble.